Hello there. What is the point of fiction? I mean, other than entertainment, of course. But what is the point of entertainment? I guess it gives people something to do. I mean, other than working, worshipping, and reproducing. But is there any real need for it? The logical answer is no, because it does not progress in either of the previously mentioned categories. The thing is, humans are not purely logical beings in terms of how we process things. In fact, many people process things more emotionally than logically, or are likely at least do it at some point in their lives. What I mean is, people process things both emotionally and logically. This explains entertainment and, by extension, fiction. People consume entertainment because it gets them excited or entertains them using whatever emotions are at play within that entertainment type. Emotions can be exciting and fun to feel, which is why consumers seek out entertainment. It is also a way to spend time with your people you care about, friends and family. Fiction is a fun way for people to spend time immersed in a fictional world, or at least enjoy themselves somewhat. So that's the point of fiction, I guess. Is this the end of the video? No. If that was all, then this video could have just been a comment under a different YouTube video. And it would just make a really boring video. What about the other side? The people who write fiction. That, in my opinion, is a much more interesting conversation. So rather than asking, what's the point of fiction? How about we ask, what is the point of writing fiction? Why do we tell fictional stories? What is the purpose? Actually, the specific reasoning will depend on the person writing a fiction, of course. No two humans are exactly the same, and there are multiple different reasons why someone may want to write a fictional story. Well, for some people, writing fiction is very fun. For some people, it's a hobby or even a career. They may enjoy writing fiction more than they enjoy consuming fiction, as a matter of fact. So, what's fun about writing fiction? You're not feeling emotion when you're thinking about what should happen in the story. Well, for some people, consuming fiction is just not stimulating enough. They don't care about the fictional characters' fictional problems. That's boring to them. If the characters are fictional, why would they invest in them? That's how some people think. Writing fiction is more active and more like a fun little game, where you can make whatever you want happen. Of course, a skilled writer understands the rules of what makes a story good, like internal consistency, good themes, or good comedy, or fun action. They often can understand why an emotional person would get worked up about a work of fiction without getting emotional themselves about the works. Now, is there any useful purpose for writing fiction? Telling stories? Well, if an author can write well enough to trigger an emotion in the consumers, and the consumers are susceptible to emotional manipulation, then the fictional work can make the consumer think or analyze a subject because their emotions made them feel as if that was something they should do. Well, but what in fiction can make an emotionally susceptible consumer feel something? For some people, it's as simple as having happy or sad music raising in volume and in intensity and swelling. Why? Because music can trigger physiological reactions in people, with the intensity varying depending on the person. This is why almost no movie is without music playing at some point. Even silent films had bands or orchestras playing in the days of old. While music is a powerful tool in this regard, many poorly written films often use intense music to manipulate the viewer into feeling the intended emotions if the writing would not have sold it otherwise. Due to the previously mentioned variability in human physiology, many people easily see through the manipulation and call out the film for what it is. Also, even if music makes someone feel something, how could that be a call to action? What would that give them to think about? Not a whole lot, but that's enough about music. What else triggers emotionally susceptible people, and what would actually give them a call to action? Something more actionable. How about the characters? Depending on how easily your consumer immerses in fictional experiences, characters can be one of the strongest ways to manipulate people into feeling emotions. People who immerse into fiction easily often let their brains emotionally treat fictional characters as if they were real people. This can result in a fictional character's joys, struggles, or pain feeling visceral and real for the target consumer, even though none of the struggles or pain mean anything in objective reality. This can also result in people getting emotionally attached to a fictional character the same way they would with a real person. Why? Is this because people are stupid and forget that fictional characters aren't real? No. This happens because many human brains fail to distinguish whether what they are consuming is a real person dealing with stuff or not. Humans can have very imaginative brains, and we have no naturally selective reason to not respond to fictional sources of emotions. Interestingly, some people are so easily immersed in fiction or art that they may seriously grieve a fictional character they are attached to if they die, or if they are portrayed in such a way that disrespects the character's prior established treatment, in official media, of course. This can happen due to the consumer spending a lot of time with the character, combined with decent writing that can provoke emotion, although good writing is not always a requirement for provoking emotions. Getting attached to a fictional character can produce some negative consequences for the consumer because it could cause them to be less emotionally available toward real people more deserving of emotional attachment. In fact, character-based emotional manipulation can work so well that when people often point to the best works of fiction, they typically point towards works that emotionally manipulate people through fictional characters. Because many people associate how emotional they get with a fictional character to the quality of that work, this can result in a fictional work being revered as a true masterpiece when, in some cases, the only thing that the work truly did well was emotionally manipulate the viewer, but fail in many other core aspects. Of course, some of those works genuinely are masterpieces, and the emotional roller coaster helped the emotionally manipulated viewer understand that. But just like with physiology, people vary in how much this trickery works. For some people, their brains really do separate reality from fiction and feel nothing or significantly less emotions from fictional events than the real-life variant. In fact, humans can vary with pretty much anything when it comes to the way we think. Emotion level, analyzing level, imaginative level, and a bunch of other things. Let's go back to the focus. Why does an author want the consumer to emotionally react to their work? This depends on the author. For some, it's quite simple. They want an emotional response because it may signal that they are in fact a good writer and that their emotional beats worked, or because it means the viewer isn't indifferent to their work. No author wants their work to be seen with indifference, and a successful emotional response is a signal the consumer is absolutely not indifferent. That brings us to the other thing an author could want from the consumer. For those authors, there may be a call to action of some sort. Maybe there is a message in the work. Maybe the goal is to see a thing from another perspective, or simply to make the consumer think. Other times the consumer has an ideology that he wants to convince the audience is correct, and may use the story and characters to do so, sometimes at the expense of the story. So in terms of logical usefulness from the perspective of the author, fiction can be for convincing the audience of a position on something in the real world. It can be something universal and timeless, like something about the human experience, or something current, like politics, which can get dated very quickly. If that's the logical purpose of fiction, is there a non-logical purpose of fiction from the perspective of the author? Yes, of course. Often fiction is made because it's just fun to do so, or they want to make a fun work of fiction that appeal to a mass demographic. These works usually don't have any big morals, or if they do, they are not super complicated. And of course, I also mentioned the other not mainly logical usefulness, which was emotional responses that may signal that the author is a good writer. Sometimes, if a work of fiction gets popular enough, many people who have seen it can join together and talk about how they each view it differently, like how some people may see it reflect their life experience, or some people think it's just mediocre, garbage. This is how fandoms work, and especially for large works of fiction, can cause major disagreements within human folks. This concludes everything I wanted to discuss in this video. Thank you for watching and have a good day.